and they can essentially switch it on just like, a wall socket, like you're saying. Yeah. And most people don't realize that, but yes, it's called a roving bug, they call it. And I mean, this is, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I've mentioned on the show is that you remember when they went from to a digital-based phone, and they had GPS trackers. They added trackers to phones some 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that they came up with was, we're doing this because, if you're disabled, we can send 911 to pick you up on the GPS tracker, and all that has nothing to do with anything. They don't care whether I'm disabled on the road. I mean, I was a traveling salesman 30 years ago, and no one cared. I mean, and you flag down a top, and if the car broke down, and that's it. I mean, nothing's going to happen. But what it is to track you and to keep control on you. That's what people have to realize.
Yeah, it's kind of like they used to tag cattle and put a tag on their ear. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
they can monitor us remotely.
Well, they have a system now, or a program now, that for people that are homeless and food stamp recipients and stuff, what they do is that the government will provide you with a cell phone. And I guess it's a limited plan, like 250 minutes a month or something, but it's still free. And, Mike, I think that is for tracking you, just like the cattle you're talking about. It really is.
Yeah. I wonder if it's establishing migratory patterns of homeless people.
It probably is. It isn't. They don't do it for benign reasons, no.
Something off subject, but I found it really interesting was that I was watching the show, and they were talking about Bigfoot encounters in a remote area in Canada, and they thought, well, we'll go take a bunch of people up there and put cameras all over this house and catch them on film, and they couldn't figure out that they kept going back week after week and no sightings. And they finally figured out that the Sasquatches migrate, and they're following the blueberries ripening.
That's very possible. It's very possible. I've always been interested in the Bigfoot phenomenon. We've had a few shows on it. But I'd follow the blueberries, too, if it was something I could do. But I don't know. But, it just, I guess maybe I have a cynical inclination in that I don't really, I'm not a big believer in the goodness of people, if you will, and especially of government. And what's that old saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, or something like that. As best I recollect, it was something to that effect. And
a lot of them.
Yeah, but I do. For 5 minutes, I don't believe that they're worried about the homeless people being in a bad situation, and they're going to give them a phone so they can call. I mean, I'd like to think that was it, but I don't.
Well, we don't know what capabilities they actually have with this monitoring technology they have, because you can put a sensor on your finger and it tells your heartbeat and your respiration and all kinds of great things now.
Yeah, I've heard that there is. Yeah.
Hey, what it's doing. The thing that's got me bugged is they're now wanting to do voluntary DNA swabs and blood tests on people, and they just started doing it in Alabama, and now they're talking about California.
I didn't know they were already doing it in Alabama, but is that the one where you can't refuse them, or is that it? Or
well, they were saying on the article that it was voluntary and that nobody was monitored, but everybody knows that if a cop is doing his duty, there's always a camera going now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huh.
And nobody's anonymous.
So if you don't volunteer to do it, you might find yourself subject to some citation for disorderly conduct or whatever. Yeah, that could well be. Yeah, it's voluntary, buddy. That is, if you want to go to jail, you can refuse it.
Well, it's the whole purpose behind it. That's the part that's really intrusive. Hi, buddy, we need you to get out of the car and give us some DNA.
I know. That's
all routine.
It's really,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know it. And once they stopped me this is perhaps 12 or 14 years ago, and some state trooper in Texas, and he wanted to look at the back of the truck, and I said, yeah, whatever. But then I got thinking about it. I said, get out of there. That's it. He had a partner. I said, tell him to get the hell out of there. And he acted real uppity about it. And there's nothing to see, some tools and what have you. But what I'm saying, I guess the whole I just agreed to it just because, just path of least resistance. But then I got thinking about it. I said, this is obnoxious. And they had to shove off because the camera was running.
Yeah.
But then this guy threatened me on the way out. And I was thinking, oh, boy. I mean, this is a hell of a note because he didn't play ball with his little Gestapo deal. And and it is scary. I mean, and like I say, people hearing our discussion will think, well, here's a couple like-minded conspiracy nuts, but the stuff we're talking about is right in public domain. I mean, it isn't like we've written a novel and this is our subplots here. This is real stuff.
Well, it's like you were saying that you try to comply with the law officer trying to perform his duty, and it's the threat of, we've just been put under like a kind of a veiled threat against law enforcement, that they're kind of thugs these days, and that's kind of the purpose behind the drive to get them all to become oath keepers and to adhere to the Constitution, because what we were talking about with the sheriff and his power, the sheriff can uncorrupt the system if he so chooses, and he's got the balls to do it. And that's the problem, is we got 3,080 U.S. sheriffs, and there's only one pair of testicles between all 3,080 of them, it seems.
Well, they're political animals, and they're not a lot of them would want to make waves because of some.
Well, I'm really saying a euphemism, but
yeah, I mean, I know that. There's a lot of corrupt sheriffs out there too, but I know what you're saying, and it is very scary. But at least the sheriffs, if potentially. Now, I think there is a move. I could be wrong, Mike. You can correct me, but it seems like the sheriff's associations have, in recent times, especially with this Second Amendment business with gun rights and all that, have kind of galvanized their position in society, if you will. I mean, there's a move towards sheriffs being more active.
Yeah.
And that might...
It was like I was saying before, is that they don't believe that they have enough public support to actually have a posse large enough to serve all the warrants on the people who sponsored the National Defense Authorization Act.
Oh God, yes.
And that's why if they would listen and start using, because sheriffs are constitutional, and so is the constitutional militias that we work with. They all swore the same oath to the same piece of paper, and if we could get them shaking hands and on the same page, the militias are willing to work with the sheriffs and get this done as posse, and change the role of militia into more of first responders. And we could cut our fire service costs and law enforcement costs by probably 2/3 across the country, and triple the amount of manpower we have available at the same time.
Yeah, we probably could.
I want to do things that fix the system instead of just kind of smear it around until people lose interest in it and stop paying attention again. Right.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. You don't want them to, because people do have short attention spans. You don't want them to, just ho-hum through this and say, yes, we've heard that story before. And yeah, I know. But the thing I want to emphasize to the listening audience, they haven't heard this stuff before. I mean, they might have heard a little glimmer here and there, but with the stuff we've talked about just so far tonight, this is serious stuff. This is life-changing, ruining stuff here.
Have you noticed people across the country complaining about more and more people being out of work as time goes on, or do they think the economy is getting better?
Well, I will say, in truth, it is getting better here in Texas. It's actually never was that bad as it was nationally. But the tree business that I'm in is actually booming. And building is booming here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But this is not your average area. That's the only reason I came to this Valley of Tears to begin with, was because business was good here. It's resilient because of the oil money. That's what it really is.
Yeah.
But it's not a great place to live necessarily or anything like that, but it's a lot of oil money flowing through it, so it keeps things propped up. But no, business is okay here. How about over your way?
Well, they say that it's getting better, but I went through Sacramento during rush hour not too long ago, and the freeway was pretty deserted. And I left early because usually when I get through this one stretch of town, it takes like 45 minutes to an hour to get through this one area, and it took me like maybe 10 minutes.
Wow. Well, we're just about to our last break. Let me keep you for another half an hour, and we'll talk some other items because there's so many issues that are connected with this. But let's take a break for about 4 minutes.